Hello there, and I'm going to be talking about ratios and ratios in simplest form. Ratios compare values to each other. That's what ratios are for. It's used to show how much one thing is or how much there is of that one thing compared to another thing. So, for example, a fish tank contains 10 little fishes or 10 fish. 3 are yellow and 7 are blue. The ratio of yellow fish to blue fish would be 3 to 7 because there are 3 yellow fish to the 7 blue fish, therefore making a total of 10 fish altogether in the fish tank. The equivalent ratio containing the smallest whole numbers is a ratio in its lowest terms or simplest form. So I'll give you an example. Let's say we had the ratio 24 to 48. In its simplest form, you would think it'd be 2 to 4. It's a similar, when you're trying to find the lowest term or simplest, see it as like how you're counting down fractions. So for example, 5 over 10 can be cancelled down to a half. Just like here, 24 to 48 can actually be cancelled to 1, 2. So therefore the equivalent ratio, because 2 to 4 is the same as 24 to 48, it's still double the amount. So for every 24 fish, there's 48 seagulls. And the same how for every 2 fish there is 4 seagulls. It's always the double amount. That's why these are seen as equivalent ratios. But the equivalent ratio containing the smallest whole numbers is actually the ratio in its lowest term or simplest form. Because 2 to 4 is not actually the smallest whole numbers that makes the ratio in its lowest term, it's actually 1 to 2 is the ratio in containing the smallest whole numbers, and it being in its smallest, simplest form from 24 to 48. 1 to 2 is actually in its smallest, lowest term, simplest form because it's got the smallest whole numbers, because 1 is actually smaller than 2 and 2 is smaller than 4. That's why 1 to 2 is the smallest form when 24 to 48 has been made condensed or changed to its simplest form or lowest terms. Let's move on. A ratio containing a 1 is a unitary ratio. There are 2 forms of unitary ratio. So 1 to n and n to 1. We're going to go for examples regarding unitary ratio later on in the video. So let's move on to our first question. Write the ratio 4 to 12 in its simplest form. So it's the same as when you're trying to write in the simplest form, see it as like a fraction. See it as writing see it as writing 4 over 12. And you cancel down accordingly. So 4 over 12 in its simple form would be, you could cancel it down, keep cancelling it down. 2 over 6, 2 over 6, but 2 over 6 can also be simplified again into 1 over 3. So then you can put it back into its ratio form. 1 to 3. And 1 to 3 is 4 to 12 in its simplest form. So we've done this by looking at the common, we've divided, because 4 can go into 12, they both can be divided by 4, they have common factors, so we've divided by their common factors, but the highest common factor. That's how we have gotten to 1 over 3, because 4 goes into 4 as well as 12. When 4 is divided by 4, you get 1. When 12 is divided by 4, you get 3. That's how we've gotten from here to here. Write the ratio 2 to 8 in the unitary form 1 to n. When you're writing a ratio in its unitary form, it's basically it means to convert the ratio to 1 to something with n. So for example, with 2 to 8, the question is asking to make 2 to 8 in the form of 1 to n. Meaning, whatever you do to 2 to make it 1 is what you must do to 8, is what you also must do to 8. So to get 2 to 1, you divide it by 2. To get 1, but you must also do it to the 8. So therefore 8 divided by 2 is 4. So 1 to 4 is 2 to 8 in the unitary form of 1 to n, with n being 4. Write this ratio 30 to 36 in its simplest form. So again, we can find the highest common factor that go in between these two numbers. So we can do this because these two numbers aren't big numbers. We can write out in the sense of all its factors. So all the factors are 30. I've already shown you, if you want to know how to find out highest common factor and lowest common multiple, watch my previous video, how to find highest common factor and lowest common multiple between two numbers. So here, in this case, we can write down all the factors. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 15, 15, no, 10, 15. I had to catch myself there. Haha. 15 and 30. And for 36, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 12, 36, and 9. So as you can see, 6 is in both. It's the highest common factor. So we can divide into both of these two numbers to find the ratio in its simplest form. So 30, 36, divide that by 6. So 30 divided by 6 is 5. 36 divided by 6 is 6. Therefore, 5 to 6 is 30 to 36 in its simplest form. Let's move on to the next question. Write the ratio 10 to 6 in their unitary forms. So the first time we encountered the unitary form, it only wanted us to write the question in one unitary form. This time it wants us to write in both unitary forms. So in a sense, the first one, 1 to n, and the next one's n to 1. So it's going to be a flip side. So for the 1 to n, whatever you do to 10 to get to 1 is what you'll do to 6 to get to as well. That's how you'll get your n. And then for the second one, whatever you do to 6 to get to 1 is what you'll do to 10 as well to get n. So let's work with the first unitary form, 1 to n. So 10 to 6. You get that to 1. When you get to get 10 to 1, 10 divided by 10. Whatever you do to the left-hand side, you also do to the right-hand side. So the same way how you divided 10 by 10 to get 1, you'll do 6 also divided by 10 to get 0.6. And that's the ratio in the unitary form of 1 to n. And then for n to 1, we have 10 to 6. Whatever you do to 6 to get to 1, you will also do to 10 to get n. So to get 6 to 1, we divide that by 6 to get 1, and we'll also divide 10 by 6 to get n. So 10 divided by 6 is 1.666 recurring and 1. So you can just, instead of doing recurring, just do it to 2 decimal places, 1.67, and just make sure you put in brackets 2dp to represent decimal place. So 1.67 to 1, and that is 10 to 6 in the unitary form of n to 1. Next question. Write the ratio 316. Austin 316 in its simplest form. So again, we can, to find its simplest form, you can write down all the factors, or you can also treat it as a fraction, however you want. So 1, 2, 3. No, 2 is not in 3, it's just 1 and 3. Apologies for that. And for 16, it's 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. So as you can see, 1's its highest common factor, so that's how you divide it. This was basically a trick question. 316 divided by 1 wait for it, drum roll, It's 316. That's in its simplest form because it can't be, they haven't got any highest common factors other than 1. So therefore, you'd leave it how it is. 316 in its simplest form is 316. And for the final question, simplify 3 hours to 45 minutes. Now you're probably thinking, they're in 2 different measurements of time. One's in hours and one's in minutes. But to get hours, you have to have minutes. So if you know 1 hour, there is 60 minutes. How many in 3 hours? It's simple. You multiply 60 by 3 to get your minutes. So now you have a proper ratio to work with. So 3 hours is equal to 180 minutes. Now we've got a proper question. Now the question is really asking us, simplify 180 minutes to 45 minutes, the ratio between the two. So to find a ratio, we can look at its common factors, highest common factors. So for 180, or we can actually, in this case, we can find the highest common factor. This is how we can find out what to divide it by in order to simplify it. So highest common factor, because we're dealing with bigger numbers now, of 180 and 45. So we'll write them out in prime factors. So 180 is 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 5. 45 is 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 5. As you can see, the factors they have in common are the 3's and the 5's. They both have the equal amount of 3's in each other's multiples, written out in prime factors as the same amount of 5's as well. So highest common factor is 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 5. Therefore, highest common factor is actually 45. And if you knew your multiples, you would know 45 goes into 45 as well as 180. So now we've got our highest common factor. To work out our ratio, 180. To simplify this, 180 to 45. We just divide both by 45. So 180 divided by 45 is 4. 45 divided by 45 is 1. And now, simplified, put that back into minutes. Simplified, 3 hours, the ratio of 3 hours to 45 minutes is 4 minutes to a minute is the simplest form. And there's your answer. And that is how you put ratios into its simplest form and write it in its unitary form. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.